because that's what your legacy is going to be. That's what's going to define in the end what success is. You might be really successful, but if you have success without succession, you're failing.
I think it can feel very abstract. It can feel really big, but it doesn't have to. There's hope, and you don't have to do it on your own.
The whole purpose of the total succession wasn't to tell you what your succession was. It was to help you identify what your total succession needs to be.
Welcome to the Total Succession Show. I'm your host, Tyson Ray, joined by Kim Cochenour. We're glad you're here. Subscribe at totalsuccession.com/podcast and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. Today's conversation just might be the nudge you need to start preparing for what's next.
Welcome back to the Total Succession Show. Today, we are going to be in the very first stage of the SPACE framework, C. And we're going to be asking you the question, how do you want to be remembered? Tyson, right? You've worked with advisors who've waited too long to answer this, and some who actually got it right. And you've also done the work yourself. I've worked with you, and I've even seen you've written your eulogy. What would you share what that experience was actually like? And why do you think it matters so much for advisors who are starting to think about legacy?
Yeah, because I was thinking about this morning, that the mistake we make in planning or thinking about our future or what we're trying to work towards is, do we extend time out far enough to give us the perspective that we need? Because if we think too short term, we might be thinking differently. And I'm mindful of this because I was having a wonderful conversation with my youngest son, who's having a hard time getting through seeing what I can see. And he asked me what I view, success and help. What is my success as a dad trying to help him navigate his decisions as a late teenager who wants to get out of the house and get on his own? And I finally looked at him and said, my goal is that when I'm dead, you come to my funeral and you're thankful for the man I was in your life. And I watched his perspective just get blown up because he was all ready to be all defensive about what we were going to do next week. And it just shifted his paradigm. I think for you listening to this, when you think about being done, and you need to think in terms of time for a second. So how old are you going to be? Are you going to be 70? Are you going to be 65, 55? Are you going to be 95? But at what point do you want to be done? Or can you see yourself being done? And now see one of your clients that have been your best friend, they're like family to you for your entire career, coming up to you, and you're done. You've been out of the practice for a few years. And what are they going to say? Because that's what your legacy is going to be. That's what's going to define in the end what success is in your business. Because you might be really successful, but if you have success without succession, you're failing.
It's very true.
The reason I learned to write my eulogy years ago, I review it every year, is because this is what I want to be said about me. So this is what I want to act out and live out in my life, so that this is actually reality. Now, you may not need to write your eulogy, but what do you want your clients to say? And what I want my clients to say, and I think what anybody honestly wants their clients to say, is I was better off. Thank you for what you did. And it's counterintuitive, because what we want to say is, no, you need me. I can't leave, right? That you don't want to have somebody else helping take care of you. That's the lie that prevents what success really can be.
Thanks for sharing that. So the thing that I keep thinking of is that the legacy of your company and the legacy of what you're building lives within the home of your practice. It shows up in your team culture. It's a story that your spouse and your kids and your staff will actually tell when you're no longer in the office or running the firm. So, Tyson, I know you have seen examples of where advisors thought they had a strong legacy, but the people around them actually felt something different. Can you share about that?
Yeah, because I think most advisors, most entrepreneurs, most business owners are extremely optimistic.
Mm.
And yet optimism isn't a plan. Optimism isn't something that you're necessarily preparing for. It's a thought. And what the team around them needs is, and we joke about this internally, that, I'm pot, if you're listening to this, you might be kettle. I can see step 10 and it's amazing. Like I can see the end, or I see what I want to do. And if I'm thinking in terms of succession, what should look like, and I maybe can see step one, like, okay, I'm going to start today by delegating, or I'm going to make a call to an attorney, or I'm going to get a coach, or I'm going to do step one. And I'm oblivious to steps 2 through 9. In fact, I prefer not to have them, right? They're just annoyances. And yet the people around me very much need defined steps of how to accomplish what I saw, which is why SPACE framework is that you see it, then you prepare the list of what needs to happen. You might need to bring other people in to help you actually see what needs to be prepared, to actually then figure out what act in what order. You might need some help with that too. Then you really need some help with committing to what do you let going of, and what needs to happen so that you are actually acting out these things and completing them to then actually exit. And I think the best question, and Nick Murray used to ask this question, or suggested to ask this question to clients, was like, if you dropped dead tomorrow, do they know what to do? Does your team know what to do? Does the firm, your custodian, do the clients know what's going to happen? Because none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. And if you don't have an answer to that, then you have something to work on.
No. Well, and I think that that's a helpful perspective if you were to be able to do that and be realistic about what that is, because I think sometimes it's hard, and so, that'd be great if you could do that. You could just think through those things logically, but I think something that would be really helpful is if you have that conversation with your family or your team now, instead of waiting till you're thinking through your exit point. So, Tyson, speak about that a little bit. What kind of conversations should the advisor have with their family or their team now instead of waiting?
Yeah. So this isn't in the book. This is a freebie for those of you who happen to be listening to this podcast. I don't know where I got this from years ago, but I started about a decade ago. But what it is it's a piece of paper, legal pad. Now it's a Word document that I wrote 2026. It says it right now, 2026, Tyson, 41. My wife is 48. My oldest son is 23. My oldest son's 21. My middle son's 21. The youngest is 18. And that's the birthday for this calendar year. And then I go out 10 years. So 10 years from now, and every year I write the birthdays. And 10 years from now, I'm 61, she's 58, 33, 31, 28. And what I saw when I did this before they were in their teenage years, is I saw freshmen in high school. I saw 16 driving, right? Saw 18 graduating high school, saw when they were going to college. And I saw, and I just wrote down Christmas break, spring break, summer, to try and see where are we going to do some things that only we can do now. And now I'm going out 10 years, and it's like graduating colleges. There's going to be marriages in there. There's probably going to be grandbabies in there, right? There's going to be my own transition for succession. And what does that look like? So I have my plan in place. And by spelling out the time, that tool, I then went to my wife and my kids and said, hey, here's this year and here's next year. Like, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? So when we look back on 2026, or when we look back on 2036, we don't regret the decisions we made because we planned ahead.
Mhm.
And I think that's a fantastic exercise to help other people speak into, and your own self realize the reality of aging, the reality of time passing, and the opportunity you have to put perspective to what it was to go, okay, this one's going to drive, then this one's going to drive. So I had to plan for cars or graduations or tuition, and yet the vacations and the scarcity of time being able to do things as a family. Once the ones go to college, it's you start losing some of those anchors. And that's true in life, no matter what stage you start planning this out.
So, Jason, that's great. That's a really good place for someone to start, because I think it can feel very abstract. It can feel really big, but it doesn't have to. So, the advisor can kind of slow down a little bit and ask what kind of mark they're leaving, what is it they want to plan for, and how they can kind of begin. Um, so, if you're going to kind of talk specifically about the legacy, and we're talking specifically about the kind of the legacy of your practice, what's one question you'd challenge advisors to sit with if they want to design their legacy with intention?
I think I'm a big believer of starting with the end in mind. And so it's whether it's your funeral or whether it's when you're done, what do you want your clients to say about it? What do you want your clients to say about your career? What do you want your spouse or the people that love you and you love them say about it? And remind yourself that there's a conflict there because the clients want all your time and your family wants some of your time. And where are you spending your time? Um, I think it's I think it is what do you need to be doing to bring the joy and the energy and the enthusiasm back into your career so you can end on a high note instead of I too many people have reached ceilings of complexity that their business is sucking the life and the joy out of them and it's affecting their health, it's affecting their relationships with their loved ones. What does it look like to finish well? That you celebrate yourself and your loved ones celebrate, your clients celebrate, your team celebrates the transition that you'll have, whether at your funeral or the one that you decided for yourself, or hopefully not the one that gets decided for you.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways that that can definitely play out. Um, while we know there's a large amount of advisors who've not they're closer to their end, uh, in their career than some of the young ones coming up. So for the advisor who actually thinks it's too late, I've already missed my chance to shape how I'll be remembered. What do you think about that? Do you think it's ever really too late?
I think it's too late if that advisor says that and accepts it as a reality for an outcome
Mm,
that they can still change.
mhm. Yeah,
And I think the advisor that's saying it's too late um, needs to listen to the podcasts and go pull the book because they have options.
yeah,
The whole purpose of the total succession wasn't to tell you what your succession was. It was to help you identify what your total succession needs to be and what options you have available based on how much time you have to make adjustments, course corrections, and what you feel called to do.
yeah. There's hope, and you don't have to do it on your own. Um, and I think truthfully, if you're feeling like that, it's because you know you have some gaps you need to fill in. You know you've got some things you need to do, um, but you do have the opportunity to make a difference and start planning, and that's like Tyson said, that's what the space framework is there, is to really help you do that and get some help to help you get there. I think a lot of advisors are avoiding the seeing part of the space framework because I think at the beginning of the day, that's the hardest step for them to take. It's easy for them to plan. It's easy for them to act. That's kind of how they were able to get their business growing. But the seeing part, I think, is the hardest one because it's getting to the heart of what your business is going to look like when you are no longer in the driver's seat, and what your life gets to look like when you're no longer doing what you've spent your career, time, energy, and effort building. So it's not simple, but there are ways to make it easier for you to do it.
Yeah, and the mistake that we're wanting you to not make is that if this whole journey starts with your exit, there's a very high likelihood you're going to regret how you exited.
Mm,
Your team might regret it. The taxes you pay, you might regret it. How your clients are treated, you might regret. If you start, if you take space and go backwards, it is not. It's what we're trying to prevent. And I think too many advisors are learning what their exit needs to be by the person sitting across from them with the offer letter, making it sound very good. And then we get lost in dollars and we get lost in some perspective of just relieving the stress, not realizing that they're telling you what the end looks like. It's on their terms, not on yours.
yeah. So as we begin to wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Your practice might be your life's work, but your legacy gets to be bigger than that. And it's the people you've impacted and the character you've shown and the trust that you've earned. So if you haven't answered the question yet, how do you want to be remembered? There's still time to decide. So thanks for being with us here today on the Total Succession Show, and we'll be back soon with more conversations like this.
These conversations are designed to support your next move, however close or far it may be. Tap subscribe and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. I've wrestled with these things myself, and that's exactly why I created something to help you do it with less stress and more direction. My book, Total Succession, is now available on Amazon. Inside, I break the process down into 5 clear steps to help you exit on your terms with confidence, full compensation, and your client's best interests at heart. You can also visit totalsuccession.com/podcast to download a free starter guide that walks you through my SPACE framework: see, prepare, act, commit, exit. Remember, you only exit your business once. Create the space to do it well. Thanks for listening. Until next time.